Hi, this is Maggie Hammett with Stuckey & Company. I want to thank all of you for attending our webinar today on policy enhancements. We're going to break down some extra coverages that you may want to review with some of your clients or prospects. Kind of give you some idea of what to look out for, maybe what questions to ask, trying to help you become a resource for your clients and your insureds, even your current insureds. You probably want to review some of their policies annually with them. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, let's talk about who we are. Stuckey & Company provides independent insurance agents and brokers with some insurance programs, and we do have some pretty good service and turnaround time. We do offer 9 specialty insurance programs. We've been in business over 25 years. We do have a 151 promise. If your piece of business is in our office by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we will produce a quote by 5 p.m. If it comes in after 5 p.m., we will have it out to you the next day by 1. Customers served are 204,382. Sorry about that. Sorry, we kind of bounced ahead there. Anyway, over 200,000 in customers served. So we do pride ourselves in the service that we give our agencies, and we try to make sure that you value what we offer you. So let's go over what we do. Here at Stuckey & Company, we create the program. We have many underwriters on board. We can rate internally. We can quote, bind, and we actually issue the policies for the SafetyTek program that we have in place with Chubb. We can also process the endorsements. We do the renewals, invoicing, and we report every piece of business we write to the carriers. And we do offer a system integration. So if you'd ever want to get set up and be able to get online rating, we can do that as well with you. And then we do our own marketing, and we do our training, like webinars like this, and we also are going to be rolling out with a training course to help you understand some exposures and, again, become a resource and more questions to ask your clients. So here's a list of the specialty insurance programs we offer. The first one is the SafetyTek, the Technology E&O insurance program, which we're going to discuss today. We also offer Aspire A&E for architects and engineers. We have a program for marinas and boat dealerships. That's the Harbor Guard program. Of course, we write MPL, the Miscellaneous Professional. We have a program that's the Element program for green energy industry. We do have a department for personal lines, home, auto, boat. We also have a department for commercial lines, BOP, work comp, auto, bonds, etc. And then we do have something available for your non-standard commercial lines, and that's in the surplus lines department. So today is a webinar over policy enhancements that Harry and I are going to present to you. Let me give you a little bit of a background for you that have not dealt with Stuckey & Company. We've been in business, again, 25 years, particularly with the underwriting technology professional aspect. We have over 20 years experience. We also have experience on all aspects of professional risk, so it's not always technology related. And we do realize that firms don't always simply offer technology services, and we'll get into some special endorsements that we can add on for the non-tech guys, or the guys that offer some non-technology services. And then we also have a great understanding of contracts and what type of obligations your technology clients are probably facing when they have contracts. We also have the authority up to $25 million in revenue and up to $5 million limits when it's a contract requirement. Those are things that we can all do in-house. And my background, I've been with Stuckey & Company for 17 years, particularly all technology. So I've seen it coming for many, many years. It's ever evolving, and all kinds of new exciting things going on in the technology world. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Harry. I'll let Harry introduce himself and let you know what his experience is, and then he'll get us started on the webinar today.
Thanks, Maggie. Okay, I'm Harry Smith. I've been with Stuckey Company just over a year, and have had a good time and a challenging time learning the technology business from Maggie and the gang here. I'm going to be covering, in conjunction with Maggie, all the points that we're going to cover on enhancements. But before we get into that, we're just going to touch on what our last webinar was about. Just in case you would like to go back and review it, feel free to contact us. We'll be happy to send you a copy of it. But the last time we were doing this, we discussed our multiple insuring agreement with data breach. Just some of the highlights. Multiple insuring agreement was created to provide some enhanced first-party coverages. It includes electronic media activities liability, network operation security, and also, in addition to that multiple insuring agreement, we talked about data breaches role in that offering. And since we've had that last webinar, we've had a slight change to data breach, and it's been a reaction to a lot of questions and queries about what the fund covers and how much it covers. The limit was at $250,000, and we're now at $1 million.
Can go up to $1 million.
Can go up to $1 million for that coverage.
Some tiers, 250,000, maybe 500,000, and up to $1 million. So.
Also, please keep in mind that if you have a contract that requires a higher limit than that, let's talk. We might have a solution for you. So it's important to give us a shot with it if you come across that. That's strictly for the notifications and data breach. Okay. To begin, we're going to be going over coverage enhancements today. Coverage enhancements, in my opinion, are beyond the standard needs of what most of us see and are questioned about by our insurers, which are typically, what liability limits do I need? What deductible am I comfortable with? In most cases, we're getting together with our insurers to help them get prepared to respond to a bid situation or to compete for business, and they're looking to basically get the basics covered. But it's been our experience that these coverage enhancements are where the real value is found for our insureds. Covering them properly helps us win business, but it also helps us keep business because we're talking to them about issues that go beyond the basics. I'm not going to read down the whole list, but you see what we have here listed. We will cover each one of these points during our presentation today.
Thanks, Harry. I'll get us started with one of the first coverages that we're going to talk about, and that's information technology staffing and placement. This would be anyone that would offer identification, appraisal, and placement of personnel into an employment role, consulting concerning such activities. If your client is offering this service, here's a few things that you should probably consider as well. Who's responsible for the criminal background checks? You need to make sure, of course, when you're placing someone that they have integrity and they're not out to do any harm. So you want to make sure criminal background checks are done. And then the next thing to think about is, are they actually supervising the personnel once they're placed? That just kind of adds additional information that an underwriter would probably want to know if they're going to be responsible for that personnel's work once they've been placed into a employment role. So keep that in mind as some questions maybe to ask when you're talking to your clients. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one. This one's pretty simple. First dollar defense. It's kind of an asset where the deductible shall not apply to your defense cost. The deductible would be applied to any damages. So if only a claim that comes in and only defense costs are incurred, there's no cost out of pocket for the insured. They would not have to pay a deductible based on defense costs. The only time that the insured would have to pay the deductible is for any indemnity or damages. So that's kind of a good note that should it be a fraudulent or false claim, the carrier would have to defend and nothing would be out of the insured's pocket.
Okay, this next coverage, management consulting endorsement. This one was typically found, and you can pick it up in an MPL, but over the years, we have seen more and more of this particular function involved on the tech side. So we have provided coverage for this exposure here. Now, keep in mind that this management consulting endorsement will provide coverages at the policy limit for management consulting endorsements. And again, won't read through the definition for you, but a pretty good one to go back and look at, especially when you start to work with exposures that have management consulting, IT consulting, things like that going on. Our next one, telecommunications endorsements. Now, again, we've got a pretty long definition here, but we are seeing this type of coverage being used where people are involved with call centers, and I'm sure in your own lives you've seen more and more people involved with providing information online, messages that used to be advertised on our television airways with the major networks that found their way to the internet and things like that. So, these types of coverages, this one in particular, is something that you want to ask some pretty specific questions about. You want to find out if there's streaming involved when you have people that are involved in these types of services, because those are things that you need to be on guard for that can cause you problems if they haven't been questioned or covered correctly. Okay. It's not moving. Okay, the next coverage here, defense outside limits endorsement. All defense costs with respect to a claim or suit shall not be paid or deducted from applicable limits of liability. That means we're not using the deductible to handle defense costs. So your deductible is preserved when you have this type of this coverage. Now, this kind of brings me to one of the points that I brought up earlier. When we talk to our insureds about enhanced coverages, typically when I ask somebody if they are interested in defense outside the limits, a lot of times they're just words. They don't really know what that means. But if you ask them, if you are interested, how would you like your deductible to be handled or not handled in the event that you're trying to protect yourself from a claim? Most people would say, well, I'd rather not spend my deductible to do that. That's what this does. So if we ask that question in a different way, a lot of times we can get to a need that our potential insurers didn't really even understand that they had.
I'm going to go ahead and cover this slide. The policy territory clause amended. How the main form reads is that we will cover you in any work that you do outside the U.S. However, the claim would need to be brought back in the U.S. for defense. This enhancement was created so that the carrier can actually defend you in other parts of the world. So this states that the policy applies to injury arising out of or resulting from wrongful acts occurring, of course, or brought anywhere in the world. However, keep in mind that some jurisdictions will regulate when outside defense can be used. In those types of situations, the carrier will indemnify the insured for any sums that they become legally obligated to pay as covered damages, to which the policy applies, of course, or they will reimburse you for any covered defense costs in the course of your defense of a covered claim in which these policies apply. This is kind of becoming, I think, a big thing because with the internet, we now have so many companies offering services to companies outside the U.S. This is definitely a bonus that you want to discuss with your clients or your insureds and ask them, you know, how much of their business is done outside the U.S. And they may say, oh, you know, not much. Well, in reality, if they have a website, more than likely other parts of the world are viewing their website and possibly looking for their services. So that's something to keep in mind when you're discussing things with your insured. This last one, or the next one, I'm sorry, is the bodily injury and property damage exclusion, and it's amended. We do have the exclusion in the policy. However, this amends it by stating that we will provide bodily injury or property damage resulting from wrongful acts of the insured. Of course, it has to be related to a technology service or product that the insured has offered. This, a lot of times, is included in your BOP policy. So the intent of our bodily injury and property damage is to pick up once your BOP policy limits are exhausted, that's kind of when this would kick in. So it's kind of in conjunction. You want to kind of review a BOP policy with the insured and see what type of limits and coverage they have. And then this is just an extra added coverage that definitely, I think, in this day and age, bodily injury and property damage is something that should be reviewed and looked at quite often with insureds these days. Another slide here is intellectual property violation sublimit. Let's keep in mind there are actually two kinds of intellectual property violation that you want to consider. One is going to be media, things that are done on the internet. This particular slide points more to the design and development of software and the steps and details and the programming it takes to actually create the software. Intellectual property is going to pay for damages and defense costs arising out of any and all such infringement, wrongful acts, misappropriation, copyright, domain name, or trademark. We do have several limits available for this coverage. We can do anywhere from $100,000, $300,000, $500,000, and up to $1 million if need be. And keep in mind that this coverage enhancement, again, is more intended for someone developing software. If you are looking for media, someone that is, like Harry mentioned earlier, streaming online, you know, you need to make sure that they have the proper rights before they start streaming online. And for that type of coverage, you'd want to look at the multiple insuring agreement under the electronic media. Again, if you want to review any of those coverages, we can send you the webinar from I think it was last month, maybe 2 months ago, that we did on electronic media. But those are some ideas and some discussions that you can have with your insured. And the last one we have here is, as we discussed, we now have the data breach fund that we've added to our policy form. And again, this is first party coverage, so we want to make sure that the insured has a little bit of coverage. So the data breach fund, we can do up to $1 million. As we mentioned before, there's a few tiers. This would cover third-party forensics to determine the scope of a security failure, notification expense, which can include voluntary notification, credit monitoring, and then retaining a service or public relations in order to help with the crisis management and restore the insured's reputation. It also could pick up the law firm services to determine indemnification rights of any independent contractor. Again, this is first-party coverage, so this is for the insured and the data that they store on their own server or their own computer system. As a small reminder, The Tech E&O form is third-party coverage. Therefore, if the insured is hired to secure their client's data, that is a third-party coverage type, and that is picked up in the main form. Again, these enhancements are more geared towards covering the insured, offering a little bit of coverage for the insured. Something I did not mention in the beginning that I want to just make clear right now, that we will, at the end of the webinar, give you guys a copy of all the slides that we presented today, a recording of the webinar, along with some additional brochures and information policy forms, applications, and of course, you can always contact us should you have any questions.
Hey, folks, and Maggie, I know you just moved on, but you know, with that last slide in mind, I'd like for you all to just keep in mind that we do offer the SafetyTek expansion. A lot of the coverages, the enhancements that we're discussing here are included in the SafetyTek expansion. Many of you are familiar with it, but for those of you who are not, we'd be happy to provide more information for you as it relates to the SafetyTek expansion. It's just a fantastic way to bundle a group of very important enhancements at a very low cost.
Absolutely. Thanks, Harry.
Okay. When we started, we talked about the power of these enhancements, how you can use these to go beyond the basics with your clients, and to help them develop their understanding of what their needs are and their appreciation for your desire to get to what those needs are. Again, contractual obligations are great, but for the most part, they are there to protect the folks that our clients are doing business with. These coverage enhancements do quite a bit to help our insurers protect their own interest beyond even the interests of the folks that they're working with. Asking them the right questions around these enhancements demonstrates your understanding of their services and what their risks are as it relates to those services. It helps uncover needs that they don't know that they had, and hopefully, if you're able to do this with them, the other guys aren't. So the business comes to you, and we hope it stays with you if you continue to ask these types of questions on reviews and develop a deeper understanding of what they're doing and help educate them on what their risks and exposures are.
Great. Thank you, Harry. We've provided our contact information. Of course, you've got our direct phone line and our email address. I just want to remind you guys, we're always here to help you so that you can help your clients and your insureds and make sure they have the right coverage in place. And we can also offer you a few resources and let you know what you should be looking for and asking your clients so that we make sure we get the right coverage in place for them and make them feel secure with the coverage that they have chosen. So we are going to go ahead and open it up now for any questions you might have. We covered a lot of information. I will also just state that we do have additional coverage endorsements that we can look at. So if we didn't discuss it today, you can always contact us and find out if we offer an individual endorsement for the insured's needs. We try to keep these at a minimum of 25, 30 minutes. We do a pretty good job, but we want to make sure that you are equipped with a lot of information. So when you're meeting with the technology clients that you might have, you definitely have some resources and questions and answers. Again, we're going to provide you with a copy of the webinar slides along with a recording of the webinar as well and some brochures. I was trying to give everybody a few minutes to pop in there and ask some questions, but I guess we've covered everything here. We must have done pretty good today. If you think of something else, feel free to shoot us an email or give us a call. We'd love to talk with you and help you understand the technology risks and exposures. So thank you very much for attending the Policy Enhancement webinar. We hope you guys have a great afternoon.
Thanks for joining us.